Hello and welcome everyone to the Wednesday, July 31st edition of the US. What is that? There's a better name for that time zone. Anyway, the
Western
US
Hemisphere?
edition. What?
Western Hemisphere?
Yeah, kinda. North America. Something around there. That edition, this time zone edition of the SIG contributor experience meeting. We just started up the Asia Pacific region version of this meeting, which happens every other week. They alternate. So next week will be the APAC version of this meeting. So make sure to check that out if you're checking out the recording from an APAC region. As a reminder, we do operate under a code of conduct, which essentially says to be respectful of your fellow speakers and attendees and generally be excellent to each other. I'm your host, Chasm Fields, and we like to offer up an opportunity here at the beginning for anyone who wants to on the call to introduce themselves, totally optional. I will kick things off. Like I said, I'm Chasm Fields, and I am a co-chair of the Special Interest Group for Contributor Experience, which is the group that this meeting is for. And the purpose of this group is to tackle challenges for the Kubernetes community that relate to how contributors do their work. We have a number of sub-projects to that end, which we will go over today. We'll go over updates from each of those, and you'll kind of get a sense for all of the different sub-projects. Well, at least the ones that we track. I think there might be more. We have a lot of sub-projects. The key sub-projects, at least in SIG contributor experience. And my pronouns are she, her. Would anyone else like to introduce themselves? Totally optional.
Hi, I'm Mario. I am part of the SIG ContribEx sub-project comms and the part of the LWKD that comes out every week. And I'm also the current or main organizer for the Contributor Summit in KubeCon North America. Pronouns are he, him.
Would anyone else like to introduce themselves? Totally optional. All right, we'll move forward then. This is a very casual call, so if at any point you would like to pop in and say something, do feel free. One more housekeeping item. Would anyone like to take notes today? Taking notes would mean we're going to have a discussion here on the call via chat and audio, and we need some help from someone to record the key items that they get from our conversation. So we'll go through the agenda in the different areas, and you can just add in little notes about what you catch from the conversation if you are up for that. So would anyone like to be our note taker today?
I can help, but I will miss some things probably.
All good. It's really more of a team effort, but it's nice to have someone who is trying.
And I can help too.
Cool. I'm gonna give it to you then, Sylvester.
Okay, sounds good.
Your name will be on the doc as the note taker. Thank you for volunteering. All right, and with that, I think we're ready to dive into our agenda. First thing is events, which at the moment would mean the Contributor Summit for KubeCon North America. Would you like to give updates there, Mario, since you're one of our Contributor Summit leads?
So registration is going slowly, which is expected because there is not yet any notifications for accepted talks out. The CFP is still open. Generally, everything is moving smoothly, which is fine, which I'm pretty happy. I'm pretty happy with all of the sub leads and section leads and shadows. It's really, really great. Makes my job really easy. We have the confirmation to have another Q&A with the CNCF, which I'm also grateful. And it's already have been blocked in the calendars of the various CNCF folks. So currently it looks like it's Chris, Tyler, Gphy, and TBD. There's also a proposal which was created by Nitish for having a session regarding how to, or what is it about to run a contributor summit and what's the organization effort, to also have some advertisement, so that for future summits we get a little bit more stuff. Also a shout out to Josh, because he started really early this year with the volunteer hunt, I would say, and already have some folks that are also then could potentially step up in future summits, which is really nice. And that's it from my side.
One
Wonderful.
question.
Yes.
Yeah, what is the confirmation of Q&A with CNCF? What is that?
It's basically, we had in Paris for the first time a panel, a Q&A panel, where some CNCF folks were on the stage, and people could ask questions, either openly or anonymously. Oh, by the way, this brings me to the point that we should figure out a good way to ask anonymous questions, because last time the anonymous questions were sent a DM to someone, and then the person would basically delete it afterwards. And then they answer questions. So obviously a lot of conversation last year went around, or in Paris went around Salt Lake City as a general topic. But there were also other questions like, what is the vision for the CNCF, for the Kubernetes project, in which direction it should move, and stuff like this. So it's basically a possibility for each of the maintainers to ask CNCF staff questions regarding anything that comes to their mind.
So
And
this
people
is
found
very
it
good.
helpful. Sorry?
Yeah, this is very good. So I think for the questions we can use slide or do. SLI slide or do. That is a good
Yeah.
way to ask questions.
Something to look into. Thank you for the suggestion. SLI, I think. SLI.dl, right? Not
Yeah.
Y. Is
SLI, yeah.
yeah. I haven't used that in some time. I don't remember it.
Yeah, so I think like when I'm taking technical sessions, so because I literate, it is very difficult for me to follow what the audience speaks. Because if somebody speaks from far behind, I cannot see their lips. So I usually share a link of slide or do so people can use the QR code, and then from the mobile itself they can ask questions. So both as a sign-in user as anonymous, both they can ask.
So it's an accessibility tool and might have a way for anonymous questions as well.
So, no, it is something like what you have as a note taker. No, I sort of use it as an accessibility tool, but it is like you can display it on the screen and all the audience can see the list of questions. And like when you answer a question, you can check it so people know it has been answered.
I will have a look, definitely. Thanks for the... Oh, it's by Cisco. I guess it's by Cisco because it's WebEx. Single sign on.
I've definitely used it before, but it's been some time.
Yeah, I will have a look. Thanks for the suggestion.
Thank you very much. Any other questions about the Contributor Summit? All right, then. We will move forward to our next item on the discussion, mentoring. Sylvester, would you like to kick things off there?
Yeah, sure. I'm trying to
I'll take
start
notes
this up
for you.
again. Thank you. Thanks, Kathleen. So I'm trying to pick this up again. You know, Josh has been helpful with some notes. I've been struggling to know really where to start with this or how to start. And I've had a look at some of the existing material out there. And I guess, given that I'm new here to this group. And after speaking to or chatting with Caslin, I think it's a good idea to create some workshops to discuss moving forward with this. Because I know some of the documentation is really old. I know we have a blog out there. We have a whole group of, we have a page that lists external and internal mentoring opportunities. So I'd like to kind of set up some workshops to review those. And then the approach, I was going to actually reach out to all the SIG leads to try and gauge people's interest in this. I've already reached out to the Minikube folks. I've already said that already. So next steps on this, I think, is to set up the workshops. I'm not sure how to do that or how this fits in with the LFX mentorship either. So any thoughts on how I could set up these workshops or the mechanics of it, how it works?
To give some more context there, we were discussing some ideas that Sylvester had around communicating with the community about mentoring opportunities, and we were discussing what exists there. And I was saying it might be useful for us to kind of go over that together with me and Sylvester and Josh. So I think what you mean by workshop is like a working session, small group to go through the existing materials and decide on a path for comms.
Yeah. Yeah, we also need to figure out the material though, right, on the board as well. What's on the web page? What do we need to put on the web page? Are we going to rehash it?
That's comms.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right.
Any thoughts, Josh?
I mean, that sounds good. I know that a lot of the materials on how to do the various mentoring programs are not complete. So we can pick one and work on one. You're talking about still the group mentoring or something?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think group mentoring is a good place to start, right? Because it's probably
Okay.
easiest for the maintainers, I think, to do that, looking at, what's there. That's interesting. So, yeah, I think that's a good place to start for sure. What was I going to say? Yes, so the group mentoring would be, like I say, a good place to start. We need to figure out, like, I don't know if I should go in and update that README file, like, that we have on the site for this, or I should take a copy of it up, update it and maybe set up this working session, right, and discuss it with you guys. What's the approach here? How do we go about actually making this happen logistically?
Like setting up the sessions together?
Setting up the sessions and, shall I just go and shall I make a draft of it? Take a copy of the webpage, make a draft, discuss it? What's the approach for this? How do you normally do these changes?
So what web page are we talking about?
Well, if you click on the existing material one, is it working, that link?
The existing material? Yes.
Yeah.
The Kubernetes contributor website, so kubernetes.dev, and there's basically some information, and yeah.
Right, all of this, right? So, what I think, I don't want to try and get sidetracked talking about this now, but I mean, I think you need to say, okay, what's the comms part of this? What are we trying to do here, right? What's the next steps? So I could go in and I could take a copy of this and then sit down and draft it out, discuss it with you guys and show you this is what I'm thinking, right? Is that the right approach? Is that what you're looking for me to do to move forward? Yeah, okay. So I'll do that.
Sounds like a good path to me. Josh?
Well, I feel like, there's definitely potential work to be done on the web page. I feel like that's kind of separate from operating the programs themselves. I'm not understanding why those two are joined at the hip.
I think, Sylvester, it would be helpful to go over the email draft that you had. Is that what the other link is? I don't have access.
No, you don't have access to it?
No, it's not a sharing link.
Okay, maybe that's what you can do. Do we have time to do that now?
if you get me access. I'm happy to
Yeah,
take a look over it.
I thought I added you to it.
I think it'll clarify things. Not working. It's not working on my personal account either, which sometimes is the issue. But if you probably shouldn't.
Okay, here we go. Where is it? Contributor experience. No. Too many documents open. Just bear with me. I put it in the I don't know why it's not coming up on the document and why I can't find it, but just give me 1 minute. And I'll find it real quick here.
I'll kind of describe while you try to figure that out.
Well, I
So-
can paste it because I pasted it into the
Yeah, I can make a space for you here to do that.
Yeah.
Let me insert a 1
Copy.
square table and you can just kind of toss it in there. Notes. I can also see if I can grab it for you.
No, I've got it. Just trying to open the right document. Paste.
There we go.
And I found the document itself as well.
So Sylvester had shared this draft email concept with me, and it's an email that he wants to send out to request mentors. And so a couple of things that I pointed out here. I wanted some more clarity on that is what you're looking for. And what does it mean to be a mentor? So I asked if there were any other resources that he could point people to if he's going to try to solicit mentors like this. And so that's what got us on to, well, all of the existing materials are quite out of date. So do we want to update them? So you can see how this happened.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to figure out how to start, where to start with this.
The
And that works. Not this.
Yeah, and so you and I actually talked about this some because group mentoring basically runs on a per SIG basis. And I'm not disagreeing that we could really use better materials and we should work on those. Absolutely, like we should have a better guide for group mentoring, and I think that's been on the to-do list pretty much forever. And we should definitely work on that. But at the same time, group mentoring works on a per SIG or other team basis, right? So SIG, working group, sub-project, other standing team. Usually rather than, so you're soliciting SIGs rather than individuals, if you follow me. Because like you said, you were going to talk to SIG architecture about whether or not they were interested in running.
I was thinking about that, right? And somebody actually
Yeah.
posted up an email link which go out to all the leads. I think,
Yeah.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah. So,
so what I was going to do, Josh, sorry, I was going to solicit
Yeah.
everybody, right? And then select maybe 1 or 2. Try and gauge the interest, right? And give
everybody meaning leads. That was another question I had, is like, who are you trying to send this to?
The leads.
So then isn't the right thing to ask, do you want to do a group mentoring cohort and describe what a group mentoring cohort is rather than asking for mentors? Because you're not going to be asking mentors, you're going to be asking the leads of the SIGs who who might be mentors themselves, but are more likely
might,
to
yeah.
have other people within
Yeah.
the SIG be the mentors.
So we want to
Right.
workshop this a little bit, right? Because you're looking for 1 or 2 SIGs, which is about what we've had concurrently for group mentoring at any time anyway. And find out which ones are sort of interested and ready to run a group mentoring cohort. Because what we're hoping to do is find 1 or 2 SIGs where they said, oh yeah, we were just talking the other day about needing to recruit more contributors. Or about needing more reviewers, and we can do this. So yeah, and then
so I guess, Josh, one of the things I was thinking, right? What am I asking of these leads, right? And you're right. It may not be the leads, it may be people in the group, but I'm asking them to maybe, you know, if they're interested in participating, maybe an hour, I don't know, every 2 weeks or something.
Yeah, and we need that, and that is not currently available in writing, right? Because we need the SIGs to decide on a couple of things, right?
Right.
Number one, are they interested? Number two, what level of contributor are they targeting? Right. Because we have people who run group cohorts for basically what are new contributors, and we have people who are running group cohorts for reviewers, and we have people who run group cohorts, a couple of times for trying to mentor new leads.
Yeah, that makes sense. I understand that. That's
and those are different engagements, if you follow me, because you're targeting a different
that makes sense.
right?
Totally get that,
and
Josh,
so they need to decide if they're interested in doing this, and second, what level that particular SIG wants to target. And that's not in the guide at all, which means it really needs to be there. And then the other thing that's been, I was aware has been missing from the guide forever is,
so when you say the guide,
the timeline of what a mentorship engagement looks like.
And when you say the guide, do you mean that blog, that web page?
I mean,
or you mean in group mentoring? I know there's a separate link for.
Yeah, I'm looking specifically group mentoring.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I know.
So I'm talking about this section of the community repo.
Right.
So and honestly, I'll tell you, this is what's often stopped me from doing more with it casually, because I keep running into this problem of, oh, hey, I should promote more group mentoring cohorts. Oh, wait, the guide needs to be updated and expanded. Oh, darn, I don't have time for this. So
maybe that's the place to start then for me then, right? To try and look at this guide and update it on the workshops, the draft with you guys, right? And then start there, right? Does that sound reasonable?
And one of the other things we can do for the guide is solicit out to SIGs and other teams that have run group mentoring cohorts in the past for their sort of, documents and stuff that they used, whether as examples or as material for sort of a core guide, right?
Right. Do you have a list of people who've done it in the past? Groups?
His brain, I'm sure.
Yeah, I don't know. We had at least 10 or 15 SIGs do it. I would actually have to just do a search though.
It's on the blog somewhere, on the mentoring page.
Yeah, and you can also search the dev mailing list, because usually it's where these things get announced.
Okay.
So.
All right. So that's what I had. So then just on next steps on this then. So I'm going to take a look at this group mentorship page, create a draft of it, update it, set up a workshop or a working session just to go over it, review it, maybe even just email it out and take it from there, right? Does that sound good?
Sounds good.
Great. Sounds great. Awesome. Thank you for your feedback and help. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for getting this moving. You really, I mean, honestly, you really are tackling to-dos that are so old that the issues have been expired by the bot. So
I see. And I'm not sure. The other thing is the LXF mentoring program.
Mhm.
How that fits in with what we're doing as well.
Well, that's a
internally.
separate thing, right? Because that targets mostly students, and it's for a short paid internship.
Right, but our role is just
and
to promote it or something. Or is that what
Yeah.
it is?
Yeah. So in the short term for any individual one, right, is to promote the fact that a new LFX thing is coming up, and if any Kubernetes SIGs want to participate in it, they should come up with project proposals
Got it.
for LFX, right? By the way, for the current cycle, we're already past that point.
All right. I'll
Right?
know next
We're already
time, yeah.
past that point. But there's 3 cycles a year, so there will be another one in 4 months. The one of the things that we talked about both for Kubernetes and the CNCF that I never finished on was actually working with the SIGs to have a sort of continuously maintained library of potential student projects. Because from our project's perspective, right, the kinds of things that people work on from LFX, Google Summer of Code, and Outreachy are all going to be the same kinds of projects. It's just different groups of people who might be recruited.
Right.
And so if we had a sort of maintained library of potential projects across Kubernetes that people could pick up, then it gets very easy to participate in any individual cycle of the program, of whatever
good,
program,
yeah.
right? And it's less effort for the SIG leads than, oh, LFX is starting now, Google Summer of Code is starting now, this other thing is starting. So so one of the things that we talked about doing was just having the SIGs have a particular issue tag that would be these kinds of projects, because that would be the easiest thing for them to maintain.
Okay. Issue tagging.
And the CNCF folks who worked on CloTributor and the like could even help us with an easy way to collect those items, because they would actually want to repeat the same process CNCF wide,
right.
if we got it working. But like I talked to you, don't try to do both of these at once, right? Either try to jumpstart group mentoring, or try to do this. Don't try to do both of them at once. It's too much.
Okay.
Right, because these are
Josh,
both big investments in effort for
right.
either thing.
One last question. Do we have regular communications with SIG leads for stuff like this, for work like this?
Yes.
Okay.
First, there's the SIG leads Slack channel.
Yeah.
And second, there is a meeting once a month between all the SIG leads.
Okay.
And then beyond that, most of the SIG leads obviously read the dev mailing list and last week in Kubernetes development. So we have ways to make announcements.
Got it. Great, Josh. This is awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for your persistence.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I know how to move forward. So that's going to be a big help for me. Yeah. Thanks.
Yep. Okay.
That's the goal.
Just keep coming in Slack and stuff and say, okay, please review the new version of the email now.
I will.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Wonderful. And during that conversation, I thought of one more thing that I wanted to add into this conversation. We had discussed in a previous meeting the concept of introducing a monthly new contributor orientation meeting, which I'm still very much excited about. So Sandeep was one of the people who suggested and was interested in that idea. Mario has mentioned interest in helping out with that. So I'm hoping that we can kick one of these off in August. I was hoping to create a little draft slide deck to share with you, Mario. I know that you have some slides to add to that as well. And then once we kind of have the slide deck sorted out, and we know kind of what we want to present, at least in the first one. And the concept for the format is going to be slides, an overview of the community, basically, and a little overview of what it means to be a contributor, and then a Q&A section. And I'm hoping that this can be a 30-minute meeting. We'll see how long our slide deck ends up. That we'll do once a month. So
which means 30 slides.
Depends on who's giving them. So hopefully we'll have some conversations over the next week or two and get that started up. Any questions, comments on anything mentoring? I'll try to keep folks informed on Slack as we get some of the materials and the process sorted out for the new contributor orientation meeting. And if folks want to get involved, let us know and we'll see what we can do and what we can spin up. And we'll move on to the next item in our agenda, which is contributor comms. I put just one. Oh, go ahead. Yes.
Kathleen, you said that if we want to get involved in the contributor orientation meeting, so like, how do we get involved? Like,
that will be the question. Since we're just spinning up the program now, we're still deciding exactly how it's going to look. But how I imagine getting involved might look would be mention your interest in the program. Obviously, you already have, so I'm planning to keep you involved. We'll create the slide deck and the content that we will use at that meeting. And I imagine it will go through some iteration. So we'll present it once, we'll learn a little bit about how it was received, we'll continue to iterate on that content, and then hopefully it will be somewhat formulaic enough that someone could learn the content and be able to give it in that meeting. It just needs to be someone who is also comfortable with handling the Q&A portion as well. So getting involved at this point would mean keeping an eye on the process as we spin up the calendar invites and create the content, and provide feedback on the content as we create it. And in the future, that might mean helping to give sessions run the meeting at some point. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, and I think the idea was that we do India or let's say Asia friendly meeting and
Right.
and the Western time zone friendly meeting.
Good point. Thank you.
Are we thinking of doing that on a monthly or a weekly basis?
Monthly. Weekly would be way too frequent, I think.
Yeah, sounds good. If you need some extra help, do consider me excited for it.
Of course. I will try to keep folks informed. I need to create probably, let me go ahead and write that down. Caslin to create DM group with interested folks, or maybe a thread. Or maybe a thread in the SIG ContribEx channel so that we can do it more publicly and folks can know about it. Might have both. So I'll spin up some of that once I have a draft of the slides. If I can just sit down for an hour, I could put a few things together and we could iterate on that. Any other questions, comments here before we move on? Feel free to pop in anytime. We can always come back to it at the end. The next item on the agenda is contributor comms, and I added one thing in here, which is that Blue Sky is now available on Buffer, which is exciting. We don't know exactly how much of our contributor base is active on Blue Sky, but I'm interested in trying it, but there is a cost. Each channel on Buffer, so like each individual Twitter account is a channel. Mastodon, our Mastodon account is a channel. Basically, an account is a channel on Buffer. So adding a new channel or a new account to Buffer costs like $120 a year. And we already have 4 or 5. So our costs are getting
Yeah.
kind of up there.
Well, should we
120.
throw it out to like dev, or somewhere and say, hey, if you're on Blue Sky, we have a channel now, we have an account now, and see how many people subscribe.
True. Yeah, we could go ahead and create the account without putting it into Buffer. We can handle accounts manually if we need to. So that might be a good way to start it up, actually. That's a good point.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
And
Sandeep
see
has
how.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
Okay.
Oh, I was just going to say the general noise that I'm hearing does appear like Blue Sky is growing, but then I hear that. But you know that for given where I hear things, that would actually be more of a Blue Sky is growing as a place that people go if they leave Mastodon, which is not necessarily a large audience. So, you know, I don't know if it's growing otherwise. The other thing that we'll have to think about eventually is threads.
I think we talked about threads in a comms meeting. I think 3 weeks ago, and what we basically figured out, or the way of thinking, what we did was like we looked at tech companies, like bigger tech companies, and looked if they have a threads account, and it turned out that none of the bigger tech companies has a threads account. And we said, like, okay, if not even the bigger tech companies have an account there, maybe we shouldn't look into it.
I mean, definitely plausible. Neither Facebook nor Instagram have ever been terrific audiences for tech stuff. So threads not being a good audience is, you know, would not surprise me.
Yeah, that was our conclusion, is we don't think a lot of our audience is there.
Yeah. I think we said that it would be more beneficial to have a TikTok account, but the problem with TikTok account is that you would need to create
Videos.
and we don't have neither the time nor the stuff to do this.
Well, that would be a contributor recruitment initiative, right? Would be to say, you know, hey, we're interested in having a contributor's TikTok. Is there anybody out there who is not currently a contributor who really wants to do short videos with contributor content?
That opens up a whole new can of worms, though. If we're creating visual content, like, where does that visual content come from? What assets are we able to use? What are our rules for using visual assets? If it's an individual person doing like in-person videos, then we're restricted to the region in which that person is. Do we need to have multiple people in different regions?
Yeah.
There's a lot.
And what happens if the person is leaving the project for whatever reason and wants to have personal rights back and stuff like this?
Yeah, I don't want to do it. But Sandeep has had his hand up for a bit. Sandeep.
Sorry. I mean, what is Blue Sky? It is like a
Of
Twitter.
course. So Blue Sky is an alternative to Twitter that was created by the original founder of Twitter.
Oh, okay.
Well, not the original founder, but
Oh, well, someone who was involved with early days of Twitter.
the person who bought Twitter before Musk bought it.
That makes sense.
Okay, so it's like the Jack Dorsey has created it.
I think that's right.
Jack
isn't
Dorsey.
it? I think that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a little bit different. Yeah. It was in preview. I don't remember what the right term is. For quite some time. It was like invite only. And they became public just relatively recently, a couple months ago, but it wasn't available on Buffer. Now that it's available on Buffer, we're a little bit more interested in it, but yeah. We'll have a whole discussion about it in the comms meeting on Friday.
Just to kind of ask another question.
Yeah, please.
When we have events, in the past that we participate in, and I mean things like KubeCon and stuff like that, and we have talks, are they recorded and played on YouTube or somewhere else?
So KubeCon, if you're in the main KubeCon sessions, they do record those, and the CNCF posts them on KubeCon playlists. For Contributor Summit, we also usually record. Were you going to talk about that, Mario?
Yeah, we record usually one room, which is the main room. And if you are, and we have usually like around 3 rooms. So these are recorded and uploaded. The satellite events or the day 0 events are also recorded and uploaded, and you can find all of them in the CNCF, as Kessler mentioned, in the CNCF YouTube channel. The Kubernetes Contributor Summit sessions are in the Kubernetes YouTube channel.
Right.
So
No,
it's
I was
really
just
based
thinking,
on the event runner,
right,
whether it's recorded or not. So in the events that we run for the Contributor Summit, we record one room.
right. Okay, thank you. Now, I was just thinking, is TikTok, what would you put on TikTok? If you did have TikTok, and it doesn't seem the right channel based on what you just described.
You could do little clips of those, but that would be tough.
Yeah, I don't think it
would not be very interesting.
Yes.
I mean,
you could have some.
And I mean, from a content perspective, if you look, for example, there are a lot of tech influencers, if you could call them this, that already do like Kubernetes general content, right? So like, how does this work? How does that work? And stuff like this. So I don't know if we need to produce something like this.
Yeah. No, I mean, if we were going to have a ContribEx channel, what it would be is essentially our announcements in video form.
That's what I was thinking too, right?
With maybe some other clips to make it entertaining. So this would be very dependent on recruiting somebody new who's very enthusiastic about the TikTok video format, and is willing to put in work, but also supervised work, right? As in they can't just put random stuff on the channel. That
it would have to be someone very, very trusted if we did that. And that's going to slow the whole thing down. And TikTok content is so topical.
Yeah. So, and I guess the question is there an audience that we're not, is there an audience of contributors specifically, and potential contributors that we're not reaching because we're not there?
Or end users, but with the end users,
then we don't care, right? Well, but end users are not really our job.
I mean,
well,
it turns it is kind of our job, especially when it comes to critical communication. That's also the huge debate around the Twitter channel, because we struggled in the past to get important stuff announced to end users, and this got way better with LinkedIn and the big Twitter account. Because it just gives us a bigger leverage on an interest group of end users. And sometimes the project has critical changes that affect end users, or where we need the help of end users. For example, all of this, all the surveys that are not focused on contributors, but on end users, where we want to get as much input as possible.
In the comms team, we do now consider end users to be one of our target audiences, since we do have 2 channels that can target them.
Yeah, but on the other hand, if we're talking about a new channel and we look at that new channel and we say, hey, this new channel could reach end users, but it's not going to reach contributors at all, I think that's actually a good reason to say this is not a priority.
That's fair.
Yeah, that's true.
But on the other hand, if we had somebody show up in this meeting in 2 weeks and they're like, hey, I'm a videocaster and I'm really enthusiastic about actually, I think Kate's contributors ought to be on TikTok, and I'm willing to put in an hour and a half every week to make that happen, then
Yeah. Then we'd enable
then
them.
we could reconsider
Totally,
it, right?
but-
Yeah.
Yeah, we would definitely have a discussion about how we could
Hmm.
give them work. But yeah, good point. Thank you. We do have 5 minutes left. Shall I run through the rest of our agenda items real quick? I expected, we had talked, Sylvester and I, about the mentoring stuff. So I expected to spend a good amount of our time today on the mentoring conversation. So that was wonderful. And it's a continuation from last week. And I'm just so glad that we're doing mentoring work of any kind. So, all right, I'll move on to the next item in the agenda. I think these ones will be fairly quick. Contributor documentation. Anyone have any updates on the contributor guide or the contributor site that they want to discuss?
Somebody actually opened an issue, and I said, yeah, that's a good idea for them to proceed, which is that one of the things that the contributor guide is lacking is sort of role-based documentation that says, hey, it makes the assumption that you're going to go through all of the lessons, whereas all of the lessons are not necessarily appropriate depending on where you're coming from or what kind of contribution you're planning on making. Like, for example, if you're a docs only contributor, there's 4 lessons you can completely skip. So I'm trying to remember who this was, but I said, that's a great idea. Come up with a draft. I'll help you on it. Where we would say, we would have a page of roles that would say, hey, if you're a docs contributor, you want to do these lessons. If you're going to be a code contributor, you want to do all the lessons. If you want to be a code contributor and some Go, but you're relatively new to open source, you want to do these. If you're a career open source project contributor and you just need to know Kubernetes, you want to visit these 5 lessons. And we'll see.
Go ahead, Sandeep.
Josh, isn't this the very same thing that we discussed in the last meeting? Where Kathleen created a draft, we sort of decided to create like a path-based one-pager, but the
Yeah.
path-based was
Yeah.
sort of a role-based. No, the path-based and the role-based was same. Like I said, somebody wants to do
Okay.
documentation, somebody wants to do coding in Go, somebody just wants to be a part of COM. So this is the
Yeah.
same thing we're talking about.
Yeah.
I find it confusing personally. The document that I started a document after that conversation and sent
Okay.
it to Sandeep. And the document that I started is more around the new contributor orientation content. It is, hey, welcome to the Kubernetes community. Here's how our community is structured. Here's what it means to be a contributor. It's not role-based.
Okay.
So I consider them personally to be separate requests.
Yeah.
And I am working on the contributor orientation version of it. So, but Josh created an issue about the role-based content to see if anyone particularly wants to work on that. I don't have the link to handy, but and we only have 2 minutes left, but noted. Any other questions, comments about that? Or other contributor documentation?
Kathleen, is Josh who created an issue or John?
Josh created it. Thank you, Sylvester. Good catch. Thank you. And we only have 1 minute left. Just a quick call for updates from moderation, media, GitHub management. We actually should probably talk about elections, right? Josh, do you want to say things there? I know they're working on the schedule. Maybe have
Well,
that.
they submitted a timeline to. Wait, is my mic on?
Yes,
yeah,
it
they
is.
submitted a timeline to the steering committee. And I think that timeline got accepted. So
Election officers
in which
also
case,
reached
we
out
have a schedule.
That's good. The election officers also reached out to me about having a comms liaison. I recommended my social media shadow for that. He had particularly asked about doing elections comms again. He enjoyed helping with it last time.
Yep.
He kind of shadowed
Okay.
me as I did it last time. So I recommended him as the comms shadow or the comms liaison. And I also talked with him about it, and he's up for that.
Cool.
And I'll be mentoring him.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think the setup is good, and the schedule's been approved by steering. So the election is proceeding, and look for the first comms announcement soon, which will be a call for candidates.
So call for candidates is next.
Yeah. And
We'll
the
be keeping an
timeline
eye
does
out.
have the election completing before KubeCon North America.
Kind of expected that. Put that down. Election. Noted. Thank you. And we are at time. So last call, any last minute items before we close up for today? Wonderful. Thank you all for joining today. I'm really excited about a lot of the work that we have going on here. So thank you all for your contributions, and let's keep working together on Slack and on these meetings. We'll
Sounds
see you
good.
next time.
Thank you all for your feedback.
Thank you all.
cheers.
Bye bye.
Mhm.